All right, we're going to be jumping into a topic that we don't often talk about enough, but it is a major element to a lot of our SFE members' training, and that is swimming. Open water swimming and some of the key training tips, the traits that we want to develop over time. And some people are, just have these in spades, and they've, obviously with a lot of our people that we work with here, and a lot of you probably listening, some of you, have always swum. It's something that you've always done. It's one of the first kind of sports that maybe you were introduced to, and that you just kept that consistent. Others of us, we kind of jumped in, participated for a short time, came away from it, got back into it. And others are literally starting very late in their life, and they kind of coming into it, and they're just starting to swim and open water swim much later on in life. And as we know, things aren't as easy when we're introducing sports later on in life. But so we're going to go through some of the key traits that we openly discuss in our one-to-one, in our kind of group calls on a week-to-week basis. And these are some of the traits, as I said, or the tips that we talk about often enough that I feel that you would benefit from hearing. Yeah, we're just going to go through them. And some of them are mindset, some are physical, some are, in terms of like mental imagery, mental rehearsal, imagery. Like there's a lot to be said from a couple of these key things. And you may do these in part or in elements. Fantastic. Lo and behold, the more you do it, the more consistent you are with these sort of things, the more you're going to get out of it. So let's jump straight into it. Be adaptable. So we just had a couple of people perform and compete in a couple of key open water swims for themselves this year. These were somewhat A races for them, but in the lead up, training wasn't great. It wasn't as consistent as they wanted it to. The elements, the environmental conditions that they were hoping it was going to be in weren't that. So straight off the bat, being adaptable is one of the qualities that comes with experience, with time doing that particular sport. But the more you can kind of go into your training with that mindset, I'm ready to adapt to this situation. I know that it might not pan out the way I want it to. I may need to have different options or different versions of how it's going to go in my head. So, it's just the same old thing. You're planning for the worst. So, until you can be ready with the different outlets. So being adaptable. Open water is very much not the same as, as pool water. Some of us have only ever trained in pool water, and maybe we have an event coming up that is more open water. Some of us are the opposite. Depends whether we are land-based or more sea-based. I mean, it really, I grew up by the coast. I have a familiarity, more a familiarity with the ocean than maybe some others, but I certainly wouldn't call myself a sea swimmer. I'm much more at home in the pool, and probably just in a small lake somewhere. But you've got to understand there's a massive difference. And obviously being on the sidelines, watching Polly, my wife, compete, in kind of open sea conditions, turning up to an event, come off the back of big training blocks, there is the psychology of turning up, and that sea, it doesn't look great. It looks rough. It looks like there's high winds. There's an onshore coming in. Like there are so many different things that you've got to be ready for. Changing your breath, changing your stroke, changing your pace. There's a few things that you've got to be ready to adapt to. But again, it's just doing that work. Doing that kind of preparation, having those conversations with yourself, with your partner, with your coach, with your training partners. It's doing that because it's going to help you manage those environmental factors more so than anything else. It's going to help manage doubt. It doesn't remove doubt. Nothing will remove doubt. Like it's always going to be there. Everyone has it. Even the very, very best will have doubts. But that imagery and mental rehearsal, huge, absolutely huge. And you probably can't do enough work in it. It's not so much the volume of it, but you can work on the quality of it in terms of how you're going to develop that, whether you're working with a professional or you just go through the steps of working on taking yourself away, putting yourself in that space where, okay, what things can I control? What are out of my control? What variables do I need to be adjusting? I've been in similar conditions before, or this is completely new to me, so I need to adjust my expectations. So you're reducing potentially the adrenaline that's going to be ripping through your body. So you're going to be going into that water in a better prepared state. So, but essentially being adaptable, a huge, huge thing. But again, it comes with experience, but you can prepare yourself for it. And that's just a better conversation. And this is what leads us into that second point, being more strategic, having strategies in place. There's always a romantic element to being an endurance athlete. You just want to run, swim, you just want to kind of zone out. But let's be honest, if you're doing a long distance effort, even more of a speed effort, you don't have to be racing or competing, but you want to do well. you want to be efficient, and there's potentially some good strategies that you could be working with. Lines, drafting, pacing. These are all kind of immediately thinking about, right, what lines of sight am I working to? Lines in the water, like you're thinking about where the buoys are, the drafting, who are the key people around you. Maybe you could be drafting off that you recognize very quickly, could be of a similar pace to you. Understanding what your pace is going to be from the outset. Having these mindsets is just basic strategy, and then you can go into the detail with that. If you've got a wearable, a watch, a wearable, you're able to have you're able to put markers down, and where those markers are going to be, and if you've got buoys at certain distances, and you can check your watch, and you can and you know what your pacing's on, whether it's on point or not. You can even have crews on the sideline that are actually giving you those key times, those key splits. Like, this is all part of the strategy, but it allows you to help work with your levels of conditioning. Like, it's going to allow you to push on or pull back. We know that these different environments, when we're different competitions or races or events, it can really mess with our physiology and our psychology. So having a better strategy just keeps us in line and allows us to then push, and go hard. I mean, sometimes you may get lucky and you just go out hard, and your body you just got it the whole way through. Other times you can blow up, absolutely blow up, and so that's why it's, and worst cases you DNF kind of thing. So we don't want that. So strategy around knowing your fueling, understanding your hydration, these are other key areas that you want to be kind of working with. Understanding your gut under stress, understanding how it tolerates food after long periods of time. If you're looking to do something that's longer than you've ever done before, and maybe you only trained up until 75% of that distance, 50% of that distance, what's your gut going to look like on the other end of that, on the other side, as you tail off into that, into those last couple of kilometers, couple of miles, couple of hours, whatever that distance is. Understanding what that feels like, but fueling, hydration, huge strategic areas that you want to get on top of. And again, this whole dialogue and communication, if you can have this in some shape or form, one word with your partner on the boat or out on the sidelines or whatever, your coach, this is just great things for you to be thinking about. And then obviously sitting down pre and post event session and really having debriefing. This is where you really grow, because you really go, right, that went well, that didn't go so well. I'm sitting down with one of our guys today, it went well, got it done, but there's going to be some nice reflections, lessons learned, and we're going to be then deep dive into those, unpack those, reinstall them into our program, and use that as the catalyst for the next phase of training. This moves into this nice third point I want to make, which is working on the details. All right, that ability to reflect, to review your training sessions as you're moving through a program, it's going to allow you to kind of keep building this confidence in yourself, not just in the water, but on dry land. A lot of people are again, romantics. They just think, if I just keep swimming, I'm going to be better. I'm going to be better for it. Come on. You're working with with muscles, bones, tendons, ligaments, not to be too anatomical or physiological about it, but come on, you can do, there's so much more power and potential in your body if you start to harness potentially where your weaknesses are, your strengths are, where those little niggles are. Why are you getting those niggles in the water after a certain amount of time? Is it because you have certain weaknesses in some of those main muscle groups, those joint structures? Can you be developing them? Yes. Resistance band work, mobility work, working on time under tension, you could be working with cables in the gym. We don't have to be working with heavy barbells, but you can certainly be working on developing the tensile strength, the power of your joints. There's so much confidence you can take from doing this type of work. It's not always about the volume and the intensity. Just look at the Olympians, the high performers in your field, in the distances that you want to perform at. They're doing the dry land work. They are working on physically. They're in the gym. They're in their home gyms. They're doing the work. They're doing the mental work as well. They're probably sitting down with psychologists. They're doing the framing. They're doing the imagery work, as we said. So the work outside of the water is absolutely critical. And some of the best performers are doing it, and they're doing it consistently. And those that aren't are probably riding their luck. Those that are going to be having that dialogue with themselves where they're just starting to get a little unlucky. Things are starting to catch up with them. They're not as consistent as they used to be. And it's because they're not doing this work, and they're still hanging on to their youth, onto their athletic potential from years before, et cetera, et cetera. But there are so many 1%ers, guys, that you can be collecting along the way. And these are all little 1%ers, developing your body strength, developing your core strength, your glute strength, your hamstring strength, your single leg strength, working on your power, your plyometric ability, working on your mobility, joint function, stability through the joint. It's not always about massive weights. It's about actually stabilizing the joint, being able to, hold tension, end range, really finding that efficient stroke, that position in the water. It's all coming from your ability to harness your potential. And that's not it's always going to be done as on the dry land as much as in the water. So working on those areas. And then again, touching on looking at your nutrition, looking at your recovery. I mean, huge elements that I would have to help you unpack. Like as a coach, I'm going to be like, right, cool, great. We're ticking the boxes here. We're doing the work, but are we looking into your nutrition? Are we looking at your recovery? They're not even 1%ers, then way more than that, right? If you can dial in your nutrition, your body composition, that you need to be carrying a little bit more weight for open water conditions. You need to carry less weight, a little bit leaner in those more pool water based conditions. Like manipulation of body composition can be a huge factor. Yeah, and especially in the environmental factors of cold versus warm waters, etc. Yeah, loads to unpack there, guys. So as I said, there's the devil's in the details, and new levels, new devils, right? You want to go harder, longer, faster. You've got other things that you want to be managing. And then the last one, guys, good headspace. You gotta be happy in your own head. Like it is a solo sport. I mean, there's not many other sports where you're literally like in that capsule of a world where under the water, it's just you in your own head. I mean, there's so many great role models out there who are doing it right now, who are doing these, these long distance swims. And, it's just, where's your head at? What's your why? What are your mental anchors? How are you going to navigate the highs and lows that are definitely coming in your training, over the weeks and months of your training, and then on the competition event day? Where's your head at? What are your anchors? What are your whys? Like, you got to be leaning into the numbers. I'm a numbers person, obviously. As a coach, I'm going to be going, look, you're good for this. We've done 75% of the work. Come game day. Yeah, we're probably going a bit above and beyond, but that's okay. Like, let's see what you're good for in those latter stages. But you've done the work. You are strong enough. You don't have any obvious weaknesses. And then, understand where those landmarks are. Like, understand what you're trying to achieve. Like, what gamifying the whole process, making it fun for yourself. Like, how far you've come. You've probably come along the journey that you've taken. Like, not to sound too I don't know, whimsical or whatever you want to call it, but like some of you have probably come a long way to get to this place where you are now. In terms of your fitness and your strength and conditioning, etc. So appreciate where you're at. Enjoy the experience. It's amazing. Some of the swims that you guys are wanting to do or are doing. Whether it's swimming the English Channel, whether it's competing in multi-sport, whether it's traversing a lake. Whatever. I mean, there's so many different variations, but, you're doing 100 hundreds in the pool, with your club. I don't know, like, there's so many different variations, but like, just appreciate the fact that you have the ability to do that. And, but then again, just manage that bandwidth, manage that headspace. Like, it can honestly be the thing that unravels us the quickest. But again, going back to those points that we talked about today, that's what it's about. Like, these traits that we're talking about, these behaviors, these habits, long-term performance, long-term health. Like, that's what we want. Like, we want you to be able to do this and just enjoy the experiences that you want to take part in. But having these frameworks, having these abilities, this is what it's about. And not falling to the wayside with injury and setback and struggle and not being able to compete or do the things you want to do because you just don't have any you're just training, and just training alone doesn't give you enough framework sometimes, and you just want to be building this out as you go. Again, this is where great conversation, great accountability, great feedback comes in. All right. So, guys, hope that was useful. Love to hear what you are doing with your swimming, especially like, is this, what does this look like for you? As I said, we work with a complete myriad of different environments, in terms of how people are kind of leaning into their swimming ability. But, it's a similar game. Like in the sense of like the mindsets, the behaviors around it, like you're trying to work towards those. So love to hear those. And as always, if you want to have a longer conversation, go into the weeds a bit, love to speak to you. All right, guys, have a great week.